Hello and welcome to HPTV, a podcast about the Harry Potter TV series that's going to come out in 2 years, hopefully. The headlines today, Jamie's earphones won't fit in her ear holes. And
I broke my other one.
I like that you're just using the camera as a mirror, you know? We don't have any real news, but we did get some leaked. I mean, I don't know if you call it leaked, because if it was the public could see it. Someone filmed Hagrid going down into a tube station around Embankment, which is I used to really like it. There's like an alleyway down to the tube station coming kind of down from the Trafalgar Square area, and it used to have this really good German restaurant. This is not a joke, called Erman's a German, and it was owned by German guys, because I went there with a German and he talked to the owners and stuff, but it shut down because of COVID. So by the time I had moved back to London, it was gone. But I went there like 4 times in 2017 when I was here on 2 separate vacations. So there's your fun fact about that area today. But it is a really nice little spot. And yeah, we got the exact Hagrid that we saw in the promo photo. Looks like they're filming that guy, so there were no adjustments made to the hair if anyone complained. I think that's a real silly thing.
Some people
if that's
are
a real
saying
stuckler. What?
Timu Hagrid.
I've seen that. I don't know. I don't really agree. I just think it's a different take on it. And it's going to look so different with sound and production.
I hope so. And I don't think it's Timu Hagrid, but I was thinking about this recently, and I was just like, with him and Harry, I just feel like it is a little disappointing in the end, because like you just shared, I'm sure it was like an AI image thing, like comparing the new trio to the old trio, but like the robes and stuff looked so cool, and I'm like, oh, there was such opportunity, and maybe that will change. Maybe your robes magically change when you get sorted or something like that. Like that would be cool. But with Hagrid, my thoughts were, it just looks like a really good Hagrid costume, like Halloween costume. Like if you spent a little bit more money, I was like, oh, they just could have done a little bit more, like made him a little more disheveled, and I don't know, like
you wanted to look a little bit more
great.
messy. And like Harry, we wanted his hair to be more black and a little bit more messy. Steven, you were not here when the major photo release happened, some more casting announcements. Did you have any big thoughts on those or this leaked video that we saw?
No, I was a little bummed. I wasn't able to join you guys for those. I think Jamie talked about it, but like it's happening, right? They're filming, like we get shots of it. And the cool thing is as they continue to film, we're going to continue to get these snippet areas. But I think we can kind of get a sense for, is this what Hagrid's always going to look like? Or maybe we'll get a snippet of him in a different scene. Maybe he just, tried to look his nicest to go pick up Harry, and he's actually more disheveled the rest of the time. Like we're gonna see how this goes.
Someone said on the Reddit, they were like, I'm coming to London tomorrow on vacation. Where do you guys think they'll be filming? Can I find it? And I was like, if people knew, we would be in trouble. We would, because I'm trying to think of if there's spots. Yeah, where it would happen for sure. But then you wouldn't know unless you know when someone in production. And if you leak that, you get in big trouble. All right.
Well, now that we know that Privet Drive's being built, like we've seen that. And I mean, King's Cross is the only place that I'm sure people are hanging out at King's Cross. But we saw them building that soundstage, which is pretty big. So maybe they just get exterior shots, and maybe Hagrid and Harry out in front. Or not. Is that just Harry, right? Because he gets dropped off by the Dursleys in the book. I'm confusing with the movies. But otherwise, this is all that's going to be like out in the public. Everything from here on out should be on soundstage.
So because the area around King's Cross has been quite improved recently. But one, it seems like they are going for a period look, which makes me curious about that embankment shot. And maybe it was just stairs or this or that, but are they going to change? Like, not that they're going to have McDonald's in the background, but are they going to have more period looking shops behind them? Like I would want to show like a period of British shop. And then that makes me think too with King's Cross, do they even bother with shooting there when they'd have to revamp it? Because I don't know how King's Cross looked at, in those years specifically, but it's actually not as pretty as you'd think. And they shoot it in a very clever way in the movies, because there's an exterior in Chamber of Secrets, I think. What would be really funny is if Chamber of Secrets, they straight up just had them go out to that parking lot. Because I'm like, when do we just see a parking lot in Harry Potter? But cameras are rolling. People were really wondering whether that was episode 1 or 2. I'm a huge proponent of not having episode 1 end with Harry at Hogwarts. I really think he needs 2 episodes at home, going through that, meeting Hagrid, going to Diagon Alley, going back to the Dursleys, and then going to Hogwarts. But with the 6 episode order, if it is the end of the first episode, that's not out of order.
That's what I thought. I would like more time in the Muggle world, but since we're only getting 6 episodes, I think they may have to, get them there.
Well, I read someone say that they're pretty sure episode 1 is ending with Harry on the boat.
Oh, well, still.
So I don't know how true that was, but that was like on Reddit or something, on one of the leak posts.
But that just makes me, a little bit sad. But in the movie, I wonder if we know the minute mark that he ends up on the boat, because if it's 45 minutes in, because it's 2.5 hour movie, then if this episode is 55 minutes, they're only getting 10 more minutes with Harry pre-Hogwarts. So I get that then you're getting 4 more hours of him at Hogwarts than in the movie, but I digress.
What are they doing at Hogwarts? The first book is so short.
It is true. Well, yeah, I mean, it'd be fun to like spend some real time in a classroom and real time on some of those night adventures. I think, yeah, Harry sneaking out at night is I don't think it's a little underrepresented in the movies.
That gets truncated quite a bit in the movie. I feel like they take 2 or 3 nighttime adventures and squish them into one or something. So they can really flesh that out.
I guess there's a lot. They have to go in the forest, all that.
Well, just when we've read / listened to the books 1,000 times, it's just like these are the things and it's over.
So I need to do a reread. I think once I finish this book I'm on now, I'm going to start doing a reread. And I'll have plenty of time to intermix other books as well. But it did make me think, I'm like, what if the whole show is Temu? What if they use, volume for everything and it's actually just pretty bad? But it does seem like they're putting a lot of money and effort into Leaves' Studios and building as many sets as they can. It would almost be funny if it's really, really, really bad. And like that first season comes out and they're already done filming in season 2 and it's just that bad that they just have to drop them. Speaking of things that they weren't able to finish, we have completed the Fantastic Beasts trilogy. Secrets of Dumbledore was our homework this week. I wouldn't call it homework. I didn't think it was that much of a tough watch, but it had a lot of heavy lifting to do, and it is the end. And I thought they wrapped it up well, but the more I hear from people, the more like, oh, there was things left undone. And I'm like, there were, but generally they wrapped it up because I think they knew well before this came out that not much was happening.
Because they had to, I feel like, I think it's clear that they rushed some things, but that's fine. I'm glad they finished it.
It was satisfactory as they could have done when that second movie went so awry. Jamie, can you give us some of the cold hard deets behind this film?
This movie was directed by David Yates again, and it was written by J.K. Rowling, and this time with Steve Kloves, who did the Harry Potter movies, almost all of them. They brought him in specifically to help her after the second movie. It was released April 15th, 2022, which is so recent. It just feels further away.
It's not that long ago.
It's set around the year 1932. Rotten Tomatoes has it at 46% critics, but audience 83%. The budget was $200 million. It grossed worldwide $407 million, domestically $95 million. And then a noticeable difference is that Catherine Waterston is barely in the movie. There's different things that go around that she was just busy because production on this did get delayed due to COVID, which changed a lot of things. So some people said she had COVID. Some people said she just had other commitments that it ran into. But this was supposed to film, I believe, March 2020, when everything got shut down in the world. Timing. And during that time, all the controversy happened with Johnny Depp and the whole
Amber Heard.
But this was the first set when he tried to sue a magazine for saying that he was abusing her, and then the magazine won. And so people took that as well, then he abused her. Right. So within that time, they had to recast Grindelwald, which was a big change, and they ended up finally shooting this in September of 2020. So a lot happened between the two movies, and within the year this movie was supposed to be filmed.
September's not that bad, honestly, when you look at the scope of things. That's pretty good to get it in that time.
But it's also interesting that if they had shot it on time, that Depp probably would have still been in it, I believe, from when everything happened. So
well, and then there's more trials. I mean, Depp had media trials and the Amber trials in the UK and the US, and he actually ends up, I don't know if you can say looking good or winning, but he definitely didn't end up making it seem like it was a one-sided element of true misogynistic villainy. But when the movie came out, it would have done no favors for him to be there. And honestly, I think Mads Mikkelsen, very different types of actors, but is actually a really good get, and he does a good job with this character.
Great.
As good as can be expected. That's the thing. After the last movie that we talked about, how much there was just, I don't know, damage control needed to be done, and then you're losing, one of your stars and everything. He did as good as he could. He came out as good as he could again. Come out, I think, maybe.
He has to do a lot. He has to be kind of charming, and he has to lead this, and then he has to be really sinister. And I thought he played both sides of that really well. Mads Mikkelsen is just really good like that.
He is really good. It's just jarring. And the whole time you're kind of thinking about it.
Depends how long it's been since you've seen Crimes of Grindelwald.
That's true.
It was a good break in there.
I did want to spotlight because we talked about this during that, but they do kind of like drop a couple of threads, nothing too significant, but weirdly they keep like Lila Lestrange's brother involved, and that does kind of work out. And also I noticed that they seeded something in Crimes of Grindelwald that I did not pick up before, but we have a significant character, a charms teacher from Hogwarts named Eulalie Hicks, who goes by Lolly. She was in the Crimes of Grindelwald in the book that Nicholas Flamel is talking to. She encourages Nicholas Flamel to participate in all this because she's kind of part of Dumbledore's, early order, kind of this international grouping of wizards. And so it's interesting because Jessica Williams was already kind of the kind of actress she would become at that time. I mean, she's actually getting bigger and bigger, and I'll talk about that in a second. But I thought it's interesting that they seeded that minor character when that movie already had so many minor characters. But it also makes more sense if they expected her to grow over 3 more films when they were writing Crimes of Grindelwald. But she did a lot of interviews and stuff, and she was given a lot of background of her character. And
isn't she? Sorry, she's a professor at Ilvermorny, right?
At Ilvermorny, sorry, I should specify. Yes, and there's a little confusion with her backstory. It looks like she was raised in Harlem, and there had been magic in her family, but it seems like she kind of grew up like a nomad. But her grandmother may have had some knowledge of magic. She's very studious. She kind of like falls for Dumbledore's writings, and they start to become pen pals. And she's really on it. She's almost Hermione-esque. She was a Thunderbird, I should add. But I just thought, I remember her first time around thinking that her character seemed like an unnecessary addition, but great American representation.
Yes. She definitely feels like they're replacing Tina with her because Tina wasn't in the movie as much as she is probably supposed to be. But so maybe it was 2 characters and they kind of just melded some of that role into hers.
Well, yeah, and maybe it was supposed to be smaller and grow, and they're like, oh, we can just give you some of this, because she does a lot of the fighting. She's really present in it, considering she's not, and we find out that Teeny's become head Auror at the American Ministry. But the only other things, as I look through, like, she actually gave a lot of interviews. J.K. Rowling tweeted about this character a couple of times. She kind of actually teased that it was going to be a bigger character in the second one, which is interesting. But she has a wand that is rosewood and African mermaid hair. Like I said, she was in Thunderbird. She wrote that book that Newt does reference, but you kind of drops these little bits you wouldn't notice. And she's also the keeper of keys at Ilvermorny, so a kindred spirit to our boy Hagrid. And this actress popped out to me. I had no idea who she was in 2022, but I've been watching the show on Apple called Shrinking, which is with Jason Segel, and it is really good. And she's a big part of that. Turns out, so her background is kind of Upright Citizens Brigade, and she was the youngest ever correspondent on The Daily Show. She was in Booksmart. She was one of the hosts of Two Dope Queens. She was in that show Love Life with Anna Kendrick. Like, I would say she's an actress with her star on the rise. So it's interesting that, only 2.5 years ago, she was in this massive blockbuster movie, or massive, $200 million, by the way, actually kind of a conservative budget for this kind of movie. And I'll howl about where I think some of that money was lost. But it's interesting to introduce a big character when you already have such a sprawling story. And she did really good. So I just wanted to kind of give a spotlight to an actress and a character that popped in for this final installment.
That's really cool. I hadn't connected those dots. I love her in Shrinking. That's hilarious.
She the first place I saw her was Booksmart, but I'm sure I had seen her in some of those other places. But she, I will say, I was thinking the whole time I was watching her, I was like, in every role she's in, it's so different. Like, she's a really good actress.
And they give her like this accent, this very specific kind of throwback accent, and she has to kind of bring Jacob in, and I just think she's a ton of fun. Shout out to Jacob, who is also just great again in this movie.
The accents still get me. I don't all of them, but I'll take them all.
Really goes for it. What did you guys have any other broad thoughts on this before we go into the howler, the negatives?
Before we get into
does it work?
I think that it had a lot to do, was the thing, right? There's supposed to be 5 movies. They ended up making it, wrapping it up with the 3rd one. We talked about what a mess last. So I mean, I do think they can be commended for like doing their best to bring it full circle. It had really big shoes to fill, I think, was the biggest thing for me, as I remember. But it was still a good movie to see. I'm excited to talk about it.
I think I was pleasantly surprised because the second movie, I just wrote it off, basically, this series, because I was like, oh. So it was good, and you could feel, like, I, as someone who has, like, had to study scripts, and, like, I mean, I think we all have a, like, script structure, you could feel that to the core of this movie. So you could tell that they really honed it in. Like, okay, here's our inciting incident. This is going to happen. This, because the last one was just so all over the place. Yeah. You could feel that, but in a good way. Like, you felt like, okay, there's a mission and we know who all the players are. We know what everyone is doing. But the twist is we kind of don't know what they're doing because we have to trick Grindelwald. And so there's this like fun element to it of that. So I really liked it. It's just weird. The last movie ruined it, and it ruined the first movie because it came after it. Just
a lot happens, but it doesn't actually feel. It feels like you're right. It's well written to the degree where it paces itself well through some things, and there's some really clever, nice ideas. So broadly speaking, we get to see Grindelwald and Dumbledore kind of meet. They kind of explicitly talk about their blood pact and the little piece of jewelry their blood's in that represents it. Can't remember the name of it. And then Newt goes for this animal that is apparently the purest little Bambi looking thing. And Credence and some of Grindelwald's cronies take one. Turns out there was a twin, which they left behind. And so that is, I forgot how early they introduced that. So like you kind of can follow this to the ending. And then yeah, Grindelwald can see the future and they have to work around that, which could get really messy. So he assembles this team together, and I actually really like the scene on the train where they're like, you're each going to have a job, but nobody can know everybody's job, and we have to do things wrong and misdirect each other. And I thought it was clever, and they didn't try and over explain it. Like the Sherlock films, I mean, this is something Guy Ritchie does all the time, but he'll have so many flashbacks at the end of the film to like fill in all of his trickery. And I'm like, well, that's not very clever. And I thought this one actually did a good job of like surprising you as you go along. And I just didn't think it got bogged down. And then the big thing is there's an election for the Supreme Mugwump, which is kind of like the head of the UN, as it were. Like you're not in charge of the wizard world, but you're kind of the leader of the free wizard world. And so you have I think a Japanese and a Brazilian candidate are the main ones. Oh, and then is the German guy the current president, or is he running?
Those were the things
I think he's on his way out.
Okay.
And he's on his way out, but he's the whatever.
And he gets seduced and whatnot by Grindelwald, who, eventually he wants to use this animal. So this animal used to choose the next Mugwump. He's supposed to choose, but now people more vote. So they are straight at campaigning. We go to Berlin. Germany is kind of our new, which poor German Harry Potter fans are like, ooh, our country is going to get the spotlight after Paris and New York. And now you get a real dreary 1930s Berlin there. But I think it worked well between their little heist and the election and seeing everything Grindelwald's doing to try and take control of the wizarding world. I think some things took a backseat, like some of his actual philosophy took a backseat, but I think that's okay. We see his charm in other ways. But let's go into some howlers. Steve, you go first. I know you watched this on a plane. You're a little blurry, but what really stuck with you?
First, I want to add a little context for this because I've shared before that like my kids, for my oldest two, love Harry Potter, right? And they've read all the books. So my oldest, she's now 11. This was the first time that like she had read all the books, but everything was old to her, right? The movies had already all come out. This was the first time there was like a new movie in the Wizarding world like premiering. And she was so excited to go. And so like I showed her the first Fantastic Beasts movie and she thought it was the greatest. And then I showed her the second one and she told me she thought it was the greatest, but she was very confused because, we all know the movie. And then we went to see this third one. And so I think I don't know if I have too many howlers when it comes to like that, because I don't feel like it was this movie's fault, if any of that makes sense. I feel like I give them a lot of benefit of the doubt. There was so much to like clean up. But I think that was the hardest part, was leaving that and her being like, hey, what just happened? I would say like there were a lot of threads still dangling out there. There were a lot of story threads that did not get resolved. And by saying, hey, this is it, like that part really was rough. Like we never got the final Dumbledore and Grindelwald confrontation. I mean, really it was just this election and they kind of give each other this look. And then, like it was a little anticlimactic in that sense. And then, Credence, you never really kind of learn what's happening with Credence. That kind of gets left out there. Nagini, same thing. All those seeds get planted, and then it's like, hey, is there connection? Was there ever going to be like anything there to help us understand how she ended up with Voldemort or any of that? And same thing with Jacob and Queenie. Like we know that they get back together and everything, but like there's a lot there to unpack and like to forgive and some of that kind of stuff. So I would say kind of just those things that were absent were the most annoying. But other than that, there was just some choppy pieces, I think. That's why I'm just looking at what notes I did write down. And there was a lot of things they abandoned from the second movie. They were kind of like, okay, where's Nagini, right? Like, where is Tina? Where is? And so, for me, it really is just a lack of the kind of, hey, let's focus over on this stuff in here instead. And it kind of hurts in the sense of like, hey, we asked you to invest in all of these other characters and all this like really weird crap that we kind of promised that now we were going to resolve, and never mind, let's look over here instead. So I'd say that's my biggest complaint with it, is that all the things that were left unresolved.
Well, real Last Jedi vibes there, Steve. James, what did you want to howl about?
Okay, yeah, I felt like, at the beginning we have like this team where we're all assigned different things to do, and I really just feel like, again, a crime of the second one, but that team should have been the original team of like these people that were going up and they're now invested in this. And of course, everyone, all the wizard world, who you hope would be invested in beating this guy, but it's like we have Lita's brother, which we never really got to know. Like they kind of just, once his story was done, he was just standing there in the second one. And so, which I guess kind of helps because then we're unsure if he's good or bad throughout the movie. But it just felt weird. Like I'm all good with like adding new characters. And like you said, like Lolly was planted in the last movie, which I had forgotten about, but I recall that now. But it's just like all of a sudden we're like, oh, really supposed to like care about these people? And I feel like they did do that part well, where it's like there's less being pulled here and there so that we could like invest with people. But it's like, why are we running off and saving Newt's brother for like 20 minutes? Oh, and it eventually all connects, which is good. But it just felt like we didn't know anyone that well and that we should have at this point, a third movie in. I felt like Bunty, again, the ball was dropped with her in the second movie. She was clearly supposed to be a bigger character in the second movie so that we knew her better in this movie, and apparently why she can't use her magic powers to replicate suitcases, but whatever.
I think they use Bunty well, but they use Bunty as a utility. She doesn't get filled out. She is like kind of this kind-hearted, good assistant. She's a nice, handy member of the team, but she's kind of whatever they need her to be.
And I didn't need her like fully developed in the second one, but maybe see her more than like the one time we see her, so that in this movie we just know her a little bit better.
We only see her once in the second movie?
I think so. I think we only see her in maybe twice.
In that case, that introduction. Wow.
Yeah. Then Queenie. So watching this movie, I forgave some of the Credence stuff a little bit more because I feel like with Aberforth, it is such a cool side story to give so much depth. But Credence still kind of bothers me. But at least we had a character change. We need the emo long hair. But Queenie, again, it's like, why? Like the whole time I'm like, why? And then she's doing like pretty bad things up until the end. And then at the end, we're supposed to be like, oh, it's forgiven. You didn't help this whole evil guy.
Her story is definitely one of mine. It got rushed. I think that's one that could have worked where over a couple of movies, she should have spent one movie getting in deep with Grindelwald, and then the next movie realizing, kind of like Percy does, that like, oh, I am being used. And actually, this is just as abusive and disgusting as what anyone else would be doing. But yeah, she kind of, the way she flips and the way she's like kind of guilty and kind of like really melancholy, it almost seems bewitched. Like, I just think it was a complicated emotional setting and arc that does not have the right payoffs or motivations or moments. That's one that could have benefited from a bit more time.
Well, and I thought, like, I just felt like they should explain, like, was she imperious part of the time? But when that gets apart, what's the brother's name?
Yusuf? Wow.
But when Grindelwald erases his memory and stuff, I was like, man, that's pretty crappy of her. Like, you would just hope throughout this movie that there would be more little hints besides, like, the one we get of her realizing, like, oh, I've screwed up here. But we only get that one instance where, like, Jacob's about to be attacked and she kind of does a little spell at one of the guys, but then walks away, doesn't do much. Anyway, I just still don't love the whole arc of her character. I feel like it should have been earned both ways more. Otherwise, not too many things. I thought the like beginning with Newt is really beautiful. Like the locations and stuff are awesome, but I didn't quite understand like what was going on and why in that moment, I don't know, they found him and how did they know he was going to be out there to get the, what is it? The cute little deer thing. Starts with a Q. I can't remember now.
I just watched this, but
chillin'.
The chinchilla. That's what I kept.
They're just chilling.
So it starts off really confusing, but at least that's paid off and like, but whatever. But I was like, oh, but it's beautiful. I just felt all the magic and stuff was so cool in this one.
No, they
Here's-
deliver on the magic. Some of it's very visually like just exciting and fun. That's for
I
sure.
think that's what I like most about this series is along with the international expansion, like they showed Brazil. Brazil's one of the schools that she spotlighted when she kind of did the Pottermore bits about some places around the world. You know, just seeing elements of other wizarding cultures and the way people do magic and the way magic can expand and what happened back then. Like, I actually think Joe's ideas to expand this world, even though it seems like it's not like her life's passion to expand, like say Jim Cameron wants to spend 40 of his movie making years on Avatar, which are great, but what else could you do, Jim? Anyway, there's clearly a lot of great ideas. I have a couple hello because one of mine was Queenie. I think the other main one is the visual. Like, very few times in these movies do you feel like you're in a real place. And sometimes it's beautiful, like in Newt's case. It is really cool. And I'm sure on the big screen, I remember it feeling quite epic and sweeping. And some of the creatures look amazing. Like, I don't think they went short on making the visual as good as you can. And David Yates kind of does this, right? He has the sepia. He has this saturated feeling sometimes. And I just thought in this movie, I felt like I was in the Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disneyland or World or whatever Disney you attend. Because remember when you were a kid, you saw that pirate ship and it looks like you're in the night and it's going off into the distance, into the water. And when you're 3, 4, 5, you don't really know what that is. And now you really can tell it's a warehouse. But I feel like that. I feel like we're looking at what's in front of us and behind it is like, as beautiful as you make it, it didn't feel like we were in a real place. Yeah. And I think the later Harry Potter movie suffered from that a little bit. And so shout out if the TV show can kind of give you that feeling. That's what worries me about the volume. I don't know if this was volume, but it just sometimes I was like, oh, I just don't feel like I'm in a real place. There's like this shadowy feeling to it, and it's shot in such a way that like we can't see the streets of Berlin. We're just kind of seeing exactly what we need to see. Well, and
even to the credit of the Harry Potter movies, I feel like when we're in the Muggle world, even when like in Deathly Hallows Part 1, where they apparate to that street, Mitchell, no, that does.
Tottenham
I feel
Court
like
Road.
Tottenham Court Road. I feel like that is a little better. It does look more realistic. It feels like you're in the world. So that's what I liked about the Harry Potter movies is when you're in the Muggle world, it feels like our world. In this, it didn't. Like Berlin felt like all a magical place no matter what. And even though I know there are the magical parts a lot, but yeah, I agree.
And I've never been to Berlin, but I thought they could have just made it feel more distinctive. Also, today I learned that there is a name for the place in Paris that they are, but not sure they even say in the movie, and they would never use it as the name of the theme park land, but there's supposedly an actual name for that little alleyway, and I wrote it down and I can't find it in my notes. Anyway, next thing to do with this is, again, it's graphics, because I thought the fight between Dumbledore and Credence was actually pretty good. There were some cool magic things that happened in it, but it felt a little like CGI slop, and Credence has to be really important, but was still kind of sidelined in this. He doesn't get to grapple with this family thing. Like, that is his moment to do so. And I just thought him and Aberforth could have used a little bit more time. I actually like the ending when it comes to those two. And I like that that's how the dumb way that they decided to cliffhang us at Crimes of Grindelwald ended. I thought they did make that work. The other big thing is, so this is not supposed to be the Dumbledore Grindelwald battle, right? Because they're like, it's referenced as if they have some epic duel, and it is closer to World War II. So maybe Grindelwald, recharges and comes at the Wizarding World in another way after this. But I just thought that their fight, they go to like a shadow realm for a moment.
Yeah, it very much echoed Deathly Hallows Part 2 to me, where like no one else is seeing this. Like, why let everyone see the epic battle?
And I'm like, I get maybe they don't want to hurt other people or damage something, but I was just like, this feels so, and it's kind of short and cheap. It's not great. And the way that they continually use that same, like, our spells are hitting each other and we're, dueling thing, I just felt like it was a really unoriginal and just anticlimactic thing when these two great wizards fought.
And I wondered if part of that was because of all the COVID restrictions and stuff like that, and like a lot with the CGI too, if they had to CGI a lot more than they thought. Like, but at the same time, it's like, well, you guys have the money to do something. Well, these people are already together.
With Aberforth, I want to say something nice, because I just don't think they quite had the time. I thought he did a good job at sounding like the other Aberforth from Deathly Hallows Part 2. I was like, oh, this actually works. And like the age difference between he and Albus and stuff, I thought a lot of that worked out really well for me. In general,
I love the tie-ins, that it's the same location we see in Deathly Hallows Part 2, which is the cool part of having the same director do both. I did think that was like cool, and seeing the same painting of Ariana. Like, that stuff was kind of fun to see. Them
having that conversation about Ariana, I think, was important for Harry Potter fans as well.
So, question on that though, on the fight, like, I have tried to understand, like, what exactly happened to the blood pact. Why did that not become it just broke because it broke?
Well,
Is that clear to anyone?
yeah.
It's something about, so it's kind of like the stupid one thing, the elder one thing. It's something about that someone went after Dumbledore kind of under Grindelwald's orders, and they are not supposed to even think about hurting the other. This is what I'm guessing.
The pact, shouldn't he die or whatever? Or
Well,
I
that's
think
the
it just
thing,
makes
right?
it
Is
so
if
they
one
can
of them
battle.
tries to break the pact, does it? I guess I misunderstood though, because I assumed it was like an unforgivable.
Yeah, I don't
or
know.
Not unforgivable. Sorry, the unbreakable vow, right? Where if you break it, you would die, which is also something with Lita's brother, Yusuf, that kind of was confusing in the last movie because he did end up breaking it because he didn't kill what's his name, so he should have died. But anyway, I kind of just assumed like if they tried to break the pact that one of them would die. So if it really was Grindelwald sicking another person on Dumbledore was what, then shouldn't Grindelwald have been killed or harmed in some way instead of the pact just breaking and being like, oh, never mind, now you can fight each other. So things like that. That's what really like made it so confusing to me. Is like, okay, now we can fight because we want to have a cool fight scene.
Can I say what the internet says?
Yes,
It
please.
says Dumbledore casts a spell to protect to save Credence, and at that same moment, Grindelwald tries to attack Credence. Their spells clash not because they're attacking each other directly, but because they're on opposing sides of the third party's protection. Okay, in my head, I thought maybe it had something to do with Grindelwald attacking Credence. That's what I was going to say. So he wasn't attacking Albus Dumbledore, but he was attacking his blood. I thought maybe that's why. But this is just saying because their spells accident. I don't know.
Yeah, this has inadvertently violated the terms,
technicality.
rendering it void because he told Newt he sought to kill, I sought to protect, our spells met, let's call it fate. Oh boy, that's thin. That is rough.
But it's like the whole
Right?
Draco Elder
Right?
Wand thing that
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to me either. So she likes those things.
All right,
Whatever.
let's move on to the pensive.
Can't move
And
on to technicality.
well, actually, let me finish with the semi-howler that moves into a pensive because I wrote 2 notes on this, one complimenting and one insulting. So the blending of this still being a Fantastic Beasts-led thing. So obviously, the fact that the Chillin is it Chillin? Did I say that right? Chillin?
I think it is
The main factor is like, okay, that's cool because that really played in both. I thought that did a great job of keeping Fantastic Beasts involved. But the other Fantastic Beast moment where Newt really gets to shine is him rescuing his brother, which is actually completely unnecessary because he gets taken and you got to go get him back. But it's completely a side quest. Like, unless I'm missing something, nothing else within that sequence moves the story forward. I mean, Theseus is a great, strong wizard to help them at the end, but him doing the crab dance and them escaping the crazy, weird little prison, like, I thought it was fun. I thought it was a good way to keep Fantastic Beasts involved, but I thought, they're kind of forcing another huge Fantastic Beasts element in. But they're also, you kind of have to have a second act action escape sequence.
Mm-hmm.
This actually, a lot of people are complaining about spoilers for Superman if you haven't seen it yet, but you guys both have, right?
No, Steven hasn't.
Oh, okay. There is
Where do you go?
an action piece where they go into a pocket universe and there's a bit of a very CGI digital fight that I thought I tripped up on it. And now every podcast I've heard, maybe I'm growing worse on it, but they're like, that took away from some of the other great flow of the film, but like they need this other thing. And to me, both of these moments just didn't fit well in the middle of their movies when they're supposed to kind of spike your adrenaline, but it also has to move the plot forward. And usually if I'm having fun with it, I'm not a stickler, but this also felt like they're trying to keep Fantastic Beasts involved, where I felt like other than that, I think keeping Newt and Dumbledore kind of as your 2 protagonists in this and joining the fight with Grindelwald and keeping magical creatures and beasts involved, they did a good job of. So I don't know if it's a howler or a pensive. I think they tried. A for effort.
I think we were talking about last time though, or one of the other times. I don't know, just like that they really they went too all in on the Fantastic Beasts thing, right? Like the first movie was Fantastic Beasts, great. Like it was time to pivot with the second movie to like, and then Newt shows up. Every time Newt shows up, he brings the beasts. You know what I mean? Like he's got the magical beasts and stuff, and they're always involved. But like to force you that into the movie, it's a little rough. And I hadn't thought about it that way, but you're right. Like you need to have that second act action piece, but like then put one in there that's gonna like matter to the story. You know what I mean? We have all this trying to make the most of our screen time and like get to know the characters, and we're like, what part does that really play in?
I think it would have helped if Newt was our protagonist still, like the first movie, and that it kind of helps heal his relationship with the brother, even after all the Lita stuff. So I feel like that was supposed to be part of it. It's like healing that and then bringing the team back together. But yeah, it added nothing. Like everyone else is doing these things, to lead to the defeating Grindelwald, but like, what does this quest have to do with our whole overall purpose?
So I call it a howler, Mitchell. It's totally a howler.
All right. Well,
That's
we're
good
moving
pitch.
on to good things, to our pensive. Just looking back at like what did work. I thought I had more of this. I wrote, Jacob is a great character. Hogwarts is a great setting, because that was a fun aside. Sometimes Jacob is just the comedic relief, but that's okay, because other times he does do that muggle representation. He has places he shouldn't be, being really uncomfortable, and he's still part of the plan. Like, I think he's used quite well. Also, Lolly talks about a game called Befuddler Dudley. So we got to figure out what that game is and play it sometime. I wrote, New Yorkers are so dramatic. And I was like, maybe that explains some of this movie, is that it's just very intense people. I just think I'm a more relaxed person when I think of like my career easily could have taken me to New York. I'm like, do I want to live life at that pace and that level of anger? I don't know. And then they use, Dumbledore says at one point, he's like, Vogel chose easy over right. And I think that was a nice callback to his quote where he says, we must do what is, I don't remember, but you know the quote about choosing what is easy over what is right. And then, yeah, I think that is my, those are just a few nice little shout-outs. And overall, like, I enjoyed the pace. When I said, oh, we need a big second action piece, I did think the election stuff can be pretty engaged, and like wondering how the plan was going to happen and seeing people get separated. Like, I was pretty engaged without the crab aside. But, oh, another thing, there is a feeling of whimsy that it maintains that I do like. That is probably credit to New, and also like Eddie Redmayne. I think overall, he brought a 360-degree character that probably deserved better. And when we talk about how we like the way the world expanded, it kind of sucks that this failed and we didn't get maybe not necessarily other spinoffs, but other ideas like this. And now this show has to do well for us to earn it, because think about it, if this show doesn't do well, are they going to try to bring something in the wizarding world to life on screen again for a long time? And what would it be that would get viewers if this doesn't work? Anyway, that's a depressing thought. You guys go ahead with good things.
First, your Dumbledore quote is from Goblets of Fire. He says, times are dark and difficult times lie ahead. Soon we must all face the choice between what is right and what is easy. So you're right. I will say that one of the things, I feel like the last movie tried really hard to subvert expectations, like in all the wildest ways. And you're right, Last Jedi, and even just like the attempt to salvage it with Rise of Skywalker come to mind. But for these two movies, the dynamic. But I do feel like the fact that this took a political like tilt, and how you're right, that was engaging and interesting. That subverted my expectations, right? When you think of the magical world, you think of the battles and the magical creatures in this case and stuff, but kind of like the political route and stuff. It was a very interesting angle that I think actually worked pretty well. So that was something that I liked. I would also just say, kind of, you talked about this too, but the magical world building, seeing new places, new people, understanding, how is the magical community function in Brazil and in Berlin. And then the Bambi piece. Bambi was adorable. The chillin' Bambis. But it was a nice way to insert a magical creature, and a way to kind of create like a litmus test for like, is this a good person that we're putting in charge? Which would be kind of nice. I kind of wish we had one of those if we could do, for our presidential elections or whatever else it might be. I don't think any of them would actually pass that test. We'd have to like go, get a whole new crop of candidates, but pretty much every time. But it might, hopefully it'd have a good impact. But I thought that was a cool way to kind of inject some of that into the world of like, hey, good versus evil does matter. And it's not just being able to pull the wool over people's eyes. And in this case, there's a handy little magical beast we can use to help us determine who's good and who's bad. But those are some of my favorites. I have some more, but Jimmy, you go. I want to hear what you
Okay, I kind of have a lot more than I thought. But first of all, Jude Law is Dumbledore, and it's not just because he's hot. He does so good. And this will kind of be part of my golden snitch too, in a very cheesy manner. But I think he does such a good job capturing that part of Dumbledore, and you empathize with him so much, and just showing a different point of view of Dumbledore than what we obviously get through Harry, because Harry's seeing him as like this old man mentor, like for the first few books, like this almost perfect being to him. I think Mitchell mentioned, or someone mentioned, the whole Aberforth. I loved getting his backstory, even though I criticized in the second movie him and his goat love. I'm glad that they're redeeming this man. I'm just being known for loving goats. And so I thought he did a really good job. And I actually thought that worked pretty well. And with all of this, I wish there was more of it. That's like, part of it.
Which is a compliment, yeah.
Yeah. And then there was
here's a question for you, though, because we never really learned much about Credence's mother. So is is Credence part goat somehow or something? Like what's
No, his
what's
mother's on the
story?
ship. Her baby gets taken and swapped.
Baby swap.
We see the mother. Well, I think that's supposed to be the mother. Well, they do talk about her in the movie.
Maybe there's some weird transfiguration stuff that happens.
Dumbledore talks about how Credence fell in love. I'm not Credence. Aberforth fell in love the same time he did. But cool magic moments. I liked the Credence Dumbledore battle inception-y thing. I thought that was really cool. The cloud magic to show them like what's going on when they come to Hogwarts. I don't know if it's called a state dinner, but I call it a state dinner where Lolly has to help Jacob. And I just thought Jacob and Lolly was a great match. And then Jacob being with Dumbledore were also great matches. And I feel like he toned it down a little bit this one, which I thought was great, like the over-the-top kind of accent stuff. And then returning to Hogwarts, you guys talked about. I loved like the little homages to the original series. So like the Room of Requirement, seeing the Monster Book of Monsters. But overall, like there was this element of, they kind of did the same thing with Usopp that they did with Snape, where like he was pretending to play both sides. Grindelwald exploiting an magical creature's innocence, just like Voldemort did with the unicorn. And then just other little things like the multiplying magic that we got in Deathly Hallows. I cannot talk today. And then just like that it all came down to the same thing that the Harry Potter books come down to, like love versus power. So I really liked having all those themes echoed in this that feel familiar to us and match up with the books in the series that this all comes from.
So I am curious. I'm going to maybe change what the Marauders map represents a little bit more here, because we've talked a couple times about how we blend these in with the new TV series. I don't think we will. I think any little elements of this world building that they can hint at and then that can turn into something would be great. But I want to look, I don't think there's a world. I think this would have had to make $1 billion for them to keep this series going, but they technically leave it open-ended. Like Grindelwald is not in prison at the end of this, and we know he is in prison later. Credence, right, he's free. Dumbledore has a nephew out there that we never see again.
Does he die at the end of this or no?
Does he die? Oh, if he dies, I
say
miss
he's
that.
like gonna die because of the Obscura stuff or something, but it's never really like stated when or how or if it's for sure.
Which is worth exploring. Which and I like how they talked about him versus Ariana, their sister. I just am curious. Like, I don't think they were going to make any more, but it's clear that there were some threads that could have this could have shifted to more of a Dumbledore versus Grindelwald. What was the next step? Because in the end, like, we liked most of these side characters. Like, they could have kept going with the gang.
Yeah,
there was so much potential, and that was the thing too. Coming out of it again, like I saw with my daughter, it was her first theater experience of a new Wizarding World movie, and she's like, "There's so much stuff there. They're gonna make another one, right?" And I was like, someone would have to make a lot of money, but there were so many things out there that is like there are things they could run with, like apparently they have no problem with swapping out an actor, so let's get us a new Credence and let's find out where that goes, right? Like let's and so there were a lot of cool stuff, but so I think that was probably the most frustrating piece, was that like didn't get the resolution we would have liked to. But there's always so much potential in the Wizarding World. There's always more people we'd like to understand better and see more of their stories.
It did wrap up.
Maybe they'll find a way to find out.
It wrapped up as well as you'd like, if you think about it. Like, they did close the threads that kind of open with the end of Fantastic Beasts 1, which is much more its own story. I think the only other thing I'd say is that, like, Newt Scamander being his age, why would he not be a bigger part of the Wizarding World going forward? Just, I mean, he's off on
where are these people?
Don't get me wrong, if he's for a decade in some desert studying something, but it is interesting to think that if this is their age, because we know Newt was originally not intended to be this young, then could they play a part, not necessarily play a part in the series, but could they then be part of any sort of expansion going forward? Just some wasted opportunity. But this movie, I think, has to be commended for being interesting to watch and closing everything to a whatever satisfactory level it could after the debacle of the crimes of Grindelwald. I'm trying to remember about seeing this. I must have seen it here in England. I remember seeing it on a couple buses, but thinking there's not a huge marketing campaign for this, which makes me think it didn't lose too much money. But I must have just gone in the middle of the day to some random cinema and clocked it. And I remember walking and thinking that was all right, but I know I wasn't excited about it. I wasn't talking to anyone about it. Like, I didn't try and get Hannah to go with me or anything, or make her watch the first two. I was just like, I got to see what they do. But
what happens here?
I knew it was ending after this one, so that makes me sad for Julia. Steve, I hope that she has many things in the rest of her life.
She's
that
got the
don't
TV
disappoint.
series now, so
Just,
that better not disappoint her. I will be coming for some people at HBO.
did she like the Percy Jackson TV series?
She did. But again, that's not, now that we're waiting for who knows how long. I don't know when the next season comes out.
There was a bit of a teaser for it, and like they had a big reel of teasing stuff coming to Max, and but I was like, who knows how far that is? And those kids, they're growing too. They can't keep doing this.
These kids aging. What the hell's wrong with them?
All right,
cut that out.
Golden Snitchwise, do you guys have any ideas that you think could be worked into the series, and do you have any final conclusive thoughts that you think are important to talk about with the Fantastic Beasts, the Secrets of Dumbledore's secrets is babies?
I think there's some really cool nuggets that, like, I think there are some lessons in here about like the side stories and the side characters and what works and what doesn't. And so I'm hoping that there's some cool stuff there, where we can get some more of the Lollies and Jacobs of the world, right? Like, I think it would be kind of cool to have like a way to see more lovable muggles in the story somehow, understanding magic. Maybe there's some cool flashbacks there about Lily's parents or something, right, as she comes into the magical world or something. But I also think, like, depending on how much of this they want to canonize, right, is that there are plenty of places where they can reference things, right? Little Lestrange's name can be on a plaque somewhere on the wall, and they can reference her story, and they can talk about Newt, because now we've got a book, and so he wrote this book back when, and kind of what do we know about the author? Is it something that some student has a distant relative? Is it one of Slughorn's, like, buddy old pals kind of thing or something? I think there's some cool things they could reference to. Like I said, I think there's a little bit of a fear of, like, okay, let's make this officially canon, and then they might want to steer away from that because it was a mess. But I do think that it might open up some future doors for saying, hey, these things existed here and we referenced them, and so now we can go back and retell that story in some format. I think there's some cool potential there for the series.
It's better than Cursed Child, and that is technically canon. But yeah. Oh, also McGonagall shows up in this one again, doesn't she? Really briefly.
Very
man,
young.
That doesn't make sense.
They decided to dig in deeper on that one. They're like, yep, she's really here, and it makes no sense, but deal with it.
I think I like the idea that, like, again, I liked the politics plot. I liked all the international stuff. I'm like, if there's anything more that they could weave into, like little shout outs. But we do get, if you think about it, Harry Potter does expand in 4. You get the Quidditch World Cup and the 2 other schools coming in, but they're all very European. Let's look beyond. And it just would be interesting to see if Joe lets other people utilize the world and expand the thoughts a little bit. I did want to talk about the Brazilian school, because I remembered that they were on Pottermore, but there's less information than I actually thought. It's located in the Amazon rainforest. I can only think of one city in the Amazon rainforest, because I remember everyone during the World Cup in 2014 was like, why are we hosting games in that city? But I can't remember the name of it. Manaus. But anyway, I'm thinking it's Manaus-ish area. And yeah, it's called, and I didn't want to say this because it's called like Castle Castel, and then it's Bruxo. How would you say that in Portuguese, Stephen?
Bruxo. So like that's the word for wizard, and
so it's like literally wizard castle.
Witch, and Bruxo, it'd be a wizard castle.
Because hey, we have the Supreme Mugwump. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Is from there. This is that during Armando Dibbitt's tenure, he was visited by a visiting professor, the headmistress at the time. And Bill Weasley had a pen friend who attended the school, and he wanted Bill to do the exchange program, but the Weasleys couldn't afford it. So anyway, that is the leader of the free wizarding world as of 1933. So that's just a bit of I feel like it also says their robes have like yellow and green stripes or something, which would just be the Brazilian flag. Real original there, Joe. But anyway, I just thought it was worth shouting out what we know of the Brazilian wizards. Stephen recently went to the country of Brazil,
Sure, I didn't see any wizards that I know of, at least.
What do you think they call wizards, Steve? Use your Portuguese knowledge. What is their word for muggles?
So in the books, in Harry Potter books, right, I read them in Portuguese, they're called trouxas, which is not a word I was really familiar with. It sounded like something else, which kind of means meaningless, but I looked it up. And it's worse, actually. It means gullible, silly, or easy to fool. So they're basically calling muggles stupid.
Simple-minded.
Or suckers as their translation. And so, yeah, if they do not see them it makes nomad sound kind, actually, when you think about it. when they're saying these are people who they're stupid. They don't know what's going on. We can trick them. So
No Madge,
fun
very
one.
simple and straightforward, and Muggle feels very original, but at the same time, a mug. Like if you say, "Oh, they mugged you off," it's kind of like it can be something like they kind of like ignored you, they kind of stonewalled you, or they're like, he's really mugged me off, he's really pissed me off, he's really screwed. Like, so Muggle does have sort of a more harsh tone than Americans understand, but it does feel like a made up word, whereas nomad is quite literal. They have no magic. But anyway, Brazil might be the cruelest of them all. Maybe every episode we need to see what a different language translates to when it comes to Muggle.
Well, also Muggle in the 1920s and like jazz meant a person who smokes marijuana. J.K. Rowling was not referencing that, but that's why they do not use it in the United States in the 1920s.
That's interesting. Cool. Potheads, Muggles, who'd have thunk?
Yeah, Muggles.
How would you literally say no magic in Portuguese?
No magic could be sem magia. So sem means like without, and then magia is magic. So say magia.
So a sem mag, you know? Anyway, here's me just trying to shout out to the Brazilian crowd, you know? Good fans, great fan community, at least of Disney. So any final thoughts on the Secrets of Dumbledore?
Okay, so my overall final thought, because this is the end of our Fantastic Beasts journey, sure. And I said this earlier, this is going to sound really cheesy, but it's just really sad to me that like this is the end of really Dumbledore's backstory, and that a lot of time was wasted. Like this movie is really all we get of that. There's a little bit in the second movie, but not much. He's not even in the first movie. And then obviously what we get in part 1. But it makes me really sad that this is the end of his story. Like there's no future idea of like a book about Dumbledore and we'll get a little bit in the show obviously, but he's such an intricate character that gets so much crap from people now because they're like, why did he do this? When she's actually tried to explain a lot, not saying that what he did was right, but I don't know. So it's like sad that this is the end of it. Like he has so much depth to his story, and I really think Jude Law did such a good job capturing that. I know you guys think I'm just in love with Jude Law, which I am, but he's such a good actor, and he was like the perfect person to play Dumbledore at this age.
Great casting.
Maybe put him some robes sometimes, but we were like promised this deep, complicated arc of Dumbledore's story, and then finishing out him and Grindelwald, and we just are never going to get it, and it's really disappointing. And I think about that final scene where Dumbledore doesn't go into the wedding, and I cried in the theater watching it. I cried last night watching it, and my husband said to me, he goes, like, as I'm watching, not looking at him, he's like, why doesn't he go in there again? And I was like, because Dumbledore doesn't feel like he deserves love, and he doesn't deserve happiness. Like, he is a man who lives his life trying to make up for what he did in the past, and who is literally trying to kind of punish himself in a lot of ways by feeling like he doesn't deserve to be part of anything. And it explains so much about his relationship with Harry and with other people in his life, that he really died being close to no one, kind of trying to be close to his brother. And I love how that's kind of shown here. And I don't know. And I really hope Lithgow like takes this role and just doesn't play it as like, I mean, in the first couple movies, that's our perspective of Dumbledore, go for it. But like, there's so much depth to this character, and it's heartbreaking. There's so much to him. Just don't make him like a one-note guy. Like, and don't make him yell at Harry, because he has so much empathy and so much going on underneath it all. And I don't know. I hope so much more, but I'm very disappointed that we will never ever get the end of that story.
Well, but it would not be Jude Law. It would not be the same, it'd be the new visual style. It would be, and so much must have happened in Dumbledore's life. Like, yes. One thing is he doesn't go on that. Like, I don't know if it'd be interesting to watch him and Grindelwald when they were kids, like, fall in love and decide to take over the world. But remember, he abandons that 1-year trip around the world. I think watching him and like his like sloppy friend, who is I can't remember his name.
Alpheus Doge.
Do their trip around the world. I think that would be funny, but he goes without him. There must be some other adventures. We never found out the 12 uses of dragon's blood. But yeah, he's also kind of very academic and self-fearful. It's like, would I want to see something of him younger, or would I want to see something between those periods? Like, there's clearly no bigger dramatic story. So you're right. This is probably the end of like background Dumbledore that we get. And he is a very good character. And Jude Law did a great job.
I mean, just the last scene when he doesn't go in the wedding, it just says so much. Like, he doesn't even look sad or anything, but you just feel so much for him. And that's because of Jude Law. Like, No one else has played Dumbledore in that way. And I hope one day she allows someone else to write Dumbledore's story.
Well, it's clear that she writes Dumbledore well. Like, she created that complexity, and so you hope that that can come through in something else. But yeah, I think this represents, it's not just because I think we came out feeling pretty positive about the Fantastic Beasts. It does feel like the end of a journey that feels a little bit incomplete, but I think the trilogy represents a lost opportunity that if they could have had a bit more patience with that second movie, because I think a flaw is that they make it a Dumbledore story a little too soon. But if they would have made it a tighter, more interesting movie that would have grown the audience rather than cut it into 5/10, then maybe there's a 5-bit movie and then they do another spinoff and another one and we stay within this. But I am excited for a refresh as well. And like, sorry, I don't hate you, David Yates, but I am excited for a different, I think I really felt that after this is like, I'm excited for a different visual style. He did a great job capturing the Wizarding World in so many ways, and he can direct actors, I think, and like, I think we generally saw really good performances under him. The young actors got better, and even though I kind of liked how the style changed with each movie, that consistency I think was good for them.
Not that sepia, Mitchell.
I can't let go. It's not just the sepia.
Down
it's
with
like
sepia.
That represents some of this this coloration and this style that he doesn't seem to be able to get away from. It's funny because a lot of people don't like the color palette of Wicked. They're like, oh, there's like this weird pastel saturation. I had no problem with it there. I think it's because it just in Harry Potter takes away from things feeling real.
It's not real, Mitchell. I hate to break it to you.
Needed to feel
I
will say this, right, is that's the whole thing with the series, right? If the series does well, we get more spin-offs and exploring the world, I think, right? If you get your Game of Thrones, you get your House of Dragon, and the 20 other ones they planned on, and like the 2 that are actually going to happen. But if it doesn't do well, then we can just forget about it. So I think Dumbledore is probably one of the most interesting characters that would be cool to spend time with and learn more about, because I mean the guy lived, I think he's 115 when he died, right? That's a long life, and obviously he did some pretty incredible stuff, from leading spy organizations basically to running a school to trying to take over the world. Like, there's some cool stories to be told there, and I think a lot of others too, if we can make this series awesome and not the Temu version of the movies.
I think they made really good main characters, and I say that for Star Wars as well, to keep, like, I think Finn and Poe and Rey are good main characters. I think the 4 they originally had in Fantastic Beasts were really good characters in a very different environment for the Wizarding World. I like the international feeling of it. I think it's great that they made this world work at the Auror level, at the international politics level. At the same time, I think Harry Potter at its best is a school story. So do I want to see a school in another country? I don't know if that is what we need, but I think if we get another spinoff, I think it's kind of like how House of Dragon is playing in King's Land, like around King's Landing, and what the leaders of Westeros are doing. Now they're overdoing that to some degree, whereas the first one was more sprawling. I think their first spinoff, I would be very surprised if it's not set at Hogwarts in one way or another. I think that is something that really works. But again, to even have the opportunity to do that, this show needs to work in a way that the Fantastic Beasts didn't. They shuttered that version and that feeling of this story. The story has the books. It is those 11 movies, and now it's going to have a new era that is completely separate, and they need to do a good job to make sure that era can carry forward and make Warner Brothers money, but also give fans more time to play in this world. And it's gonna be really interesting to see what they decide to do, what Joe decides to do, and if it ever does get the chance to open up again. And that's what these movies keep your head spinning, because you want the good things to grow and you see the bad things and you worry about that. Well, this has been the end of our Fantastic Beast journey, and it's been not fantastic, but not bad. All right. It's been somewhere in between. But thanks for joining us. And if you have your own thoughts, please comment on the YouTube video or on the Spotify, wherever you listen. Rate and review us. 5 stars only. Though, if you feel like it's less than 5 stars, email us at hptvpodcast@gmail.com and yell at us, but don't actually give a rating. And then you can find us on the socials at HPTVPod. And we've been having a lot more going on there. We're trying to react to things instantly there. So if we can't get a podcast up, we've been doing news reactions and having a lot of fun over there. And it's actually growing and everything. So please continue to hang out and tell us what you think about Fantastic Beasts if we got something wrong. And we get to decide what to explore next in this whole big world. So thanks for joining us. Jamie, send us out.
Peace out, snitches.